What's up, guys? Welcome back to the stream, guys. Sorry for the slight delay, guys. Honestly, I'm running a little late today, about 20 minutes, man. But I wanted to do the stream. Originally, there wasn't going to be a stream. I was thinking, should I just cancel the stream? I was like, nah, we got to do the stream. I set up, I want to do this for a while. I'm a little sick, a little under the weather, but we're still here. We're still grinding it out. Today, we're going to be ranking the best pay-per-views of the year, the best number of cards of the year. Now, obviously, look, I've done this. I believe I've done this like every year. Whoops, I believe I actually banging on this thing, but I believe I've done this like every year, where I've ranked the best number of cards in a row. And yeah, this year was 14. Obviously, we got 2 months where there were two pay-per-views, June and June and it was October, right? And yeah, and honestly, so I just want to talk about before we get into it. About this year, was this year better than last year? How was this year ranked up against other years? Look, I feel like at the end of the day, I see people say, oh yeah, the UFC fell off this year. The UFC didn't do a lot of good cards, a lot of good fights, and it was true. Like, there was a lot of cards that did kind of fall a little flat, let's be honest, and we're going to get into, I'm going to talk into depth of what I'm talking about in a little bit, but there were definitely some cards that were like, a little bit questionable. Should it even be a pay-per-view? Should it be $70 to pay for? And yeah, so there definitely was. But I do attribute this, and I've been saying this for a while. You guys have to keep in mind, sometimes fighters fight once a year. And the fact that UFC 300 card was so stacked, I do believe affected things. I mean, look, think about it like this. Think about, there were like 13 fighters on there that, or more, there was 13 fights. So like literally like 26 fighters that really could have been on a pay-per-view card and would have added value. Let's be honest. Like all those, I mean, every single one would have added value to a pay-per-view. So just think about that. Like, there's 13 fights, there's 14 pay-per-views. If you would have just spread them across each pay-per-view, it would have added a decent amount of value to each one. So, look, at the end of the day, guys, this stuff happens, you know. And I think next year is going to be a lot better. Is my point? Was what I'm trying to say. But honestly, I didn't really mind this year so much anyway. So, anyway, guys, yeah. So, I want to break it down, guys. I feel like I really messed up with this stream, man. I really do. I feel like it, but at least I think you guys will watch it back. I only just set up the stream stuff recently, but I did have this list for a while because I did want to do this at some point, whether it be a video or a stream. And yeah, guys, so thank you guys for watching. If you guys are watching this video back, to comment in the comment section below, let me know. And should we just get into it, guys? Let's just get into it. I don't think this won't be such a long one. This will kind of like last week, you know what I mean? We're just doing a little uncensored talk about each card. So let's just start off number 14. What was the worst pay-per-view of the year? I think everybody would probably agree. It is, yeah, UFC 301. Alexandra Pantoja versus Steve Erceg, and obviously the co-main event was Jose Aldo and Jonathan Martinez. What up, Jimbo? What's up? This would be my number 14 because, look, this was after UFC 300. We just talked about this a few minutes ago. UFC 300 took up so many star-level fighters that could have added value. I mean, I believe originally this card was in the talks. I don't know how legit this all was, but originally it was supposed to be headlined by Pereira and Magomed. Yeah, I think it was Pereira and Magomed. Crazy enough. And I believe that was going to be the main event. They wanted Pereira to main event in Brazil. Obviously, they needed a main event for UFC, or I'm sorry, it was Jamal and Pereira. My bad, guys. It was supposed to be the main event of UFC 300. That's why I was like, Pereira Goliath? I was like, I don't think it was supposed to be them, but whatever. Point is, yeah, it was supposed to be headlined by Hill and Pereira, and that obviously would have been a dope main event. I mean, and not saying that, look, I don't mean to shit on Pantoja, but it's more about the level of competition because we all knew at the time Steve Erceg did not deserve a title shot. This was just a situation of the UFC needing a main event, needing a title fight, putting it on top of it. I mean, I thought they should have went with Muhammad Mokaev. Obviously, we've since known behind the scenes that apparently there was a lot of trouble behind the scenes with Muhammad Mokaev, and that was probably why I guess they didn't go with him. But I thought that would have been a much more intriguing match, like, you know, obviously Mokaev, even still to this day, being undefeated. But the Jose Aldo, Jonathan Martinez fight was fun. But outside of that, I mean, there was some fun finishes. Like Michel Pereira had a really good finish on the card. But just overall, it was not the best. I remember I was also really sick watching this card, which was also not a good vibe. And yeah, so this is going to be number 14. We move on. I hope that, yeah, okay. I didn't want to spoil number 1. Whoops. That would have been bad. But no, good thing we saved this here. So, number 13, UFC 297. This was the first card of the year. And honestly, I think this card got too much hate, especially at the time. A lot of people were saying, oh, this card was so bad. I didn't think the card was so bad. I actually thought most of these pay-per-views of the year were actually really good. And this one I thought was a bit overhated. Look, I think it had Arnold Allen, Mosfar Evloev on it to open up the main card. I also had that fight with Neil Magny and Mike Malott, which obviously was one of the craziest comebacks this year from the UFC, like from a UFC fighter. And yeah, like I said, and obviously had the Pennington Bueno Silva fight, which was not the most entertaining fight, yeah. And the Sean Strickland Dricus du Plessis fight, I thought was one of the best fights of the year. I put it up for my nominee. If you guys saw the award show video I did. But yeah, I thought that this was totally. I thought the main event was fun. I thought that the build-up was fun with Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland. Obviously, it kind of died out near fight week because it seemed like they kind of squashed the beef, I guess, and all that with Sean Strickland crying before the fight. It seemed like these two had real bad blood. I wish they would have kept it up because I think that would have been even bigger for both guys, really, for Dricus and for Strickland. But I think well, I shouldn't say they. I would say Dricus just seems to be, a better dude, I guess, taking the high road and moving on with it. But yeah, I mean, this card wasn't so bad. It was in Canada. And yeah, so let's see what number 12 is. Number 12. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, Aspinall versus Blades. Now, the reason why I give a big sigh for this card, the main event was just a big stinker. I know Bilal gets a lot of hate, and sometimes it is a little overhated. But yeah, the main event, I don't know. When I think of the main event, I'm just like, oh, like I just remember, just the fact. I mean, I sound like such a hater, but the fact that like Bilal Muhammad became the champion, and the fact that he became it like literally by just grinding him up against the fence, it's just so like what the fans hate. And I wasn't happy with this. And one of the things I hate most about this card, let's be honest, is this poster. This has to be one of the worst posters ever in the UFC in recent memory. I mean, I like the Paddy Pimblett fight on there. I like the Paddy Pimblett fight on there with Bobby Green. That was a good fight, a good finish from Paddy Pimblett. And did Paddy only fight once this year? Like, where the hell is this guy? I hope that he's fighting Michael Chandler. Apparently that's the rumors, but that would be a crazy matchup. But yeah, no, look, like, I thought the Curtis Blades, obviously Tom Aspinall fight was good because, it lasted a minute, but Tom Aspinall did finish Curtis Blades pretty fast. And yeah, Leon Edwards and Bilal, like I said, it was kind of a mid-main event. I mean, in hindsight, it's like, I did think this at the time. I was like, in hindsight, I should have picked Bilal. But the reason why I didn't really go with Bilal stylistically, I would have went with Bilal. It's just that the first fight was just one-sided from Leon, but... Yeah, I think that these UK cards could be better. Like the past UK, is this the first UK pay-per-view? Oh no, they went to in 285, right? The year before. I was gonna say, is this the first one since COVID? No, yeah. So I feel like these pay-per-views are a bit lackluster. They don't got the regular UFC London / England stars. So yeah, I think they could do better here. Moving on though. Number 11, the Sphere card, UFC 306, a.k.a. UFC Noche, under so many events. Obviously, the main event was O'Malley and Dvalishvili, which, look, I know I just said about Bilal and it being a boring fight. I think this was such a boring fight because I felt like it was competitive. I felt like both guys, and I felt like Merab even, he put in some fun moments. He's kissing Sean O'Malley, and he was just really good. I thought O'Malley didn't really deliver, and that could be because of this hip injury that he says he has, or it could be just because Merab is better. I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. Obviously, you had the co-main event, which was terrible, I thought. Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko, one of the worst fights, I thought, of last year. Just because of how infuriating it was. Like, Alexa Grasso just seemed to have no urgency to get up. Like, it was like, yeah, let me just try to submit Valentina Shevchenko off my back. Like, what were you working on? Like, this was the one issue in the first fight, in the second fight, and in the third fight, it's like you did the worst out of all those fights to try to get up. But I digress. I mean, obviously there were tons of fun fights. Fun fact also that all the fights on the main card went to distance. Most of the fights on the card went to distance, actually. And then when you consider the fact with the movies, it did run just a bit long, the card, and I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of it. There were fun fights like the Zell Huber fight. I put that as a nominee as one of the best fights of the year. I'm trying to think what else. Oh my God, who opened up that card? It was Lazy Boy versus who? I'm trying to even think. But that was a really fun fight. To open up the main card with Lazy Boy again. Oh, it was Manel Cab. Oh, was it Manel Cab? Oh no, it was Ode Osborne, right? Ode Osborne, and he dropped Lazy Boy early, and then nearly got the finish. Noche was a lot of hype. And it didn't deliver, and the graphics, I didn't care for them either. Yeah, that's what I mean. A lot of fans, they're not gonna give a shit about the graphics. And to me, I thought it was mildly interesting. Don't get me wrong, and I thought it was interesting, but it just like wasn't enough for me to say, oh yeah, this is a great card. No, of course not. I'm not gonna like look back and be like, oh yeah, no. I'm gonna look at the fights. If the fights delivered, the graphics would have been just a cherry on top to make the event legendary. But if the fights aren't there, then I think the event kind of suffers. I wouldn't mind them going back to the Sphere. I mean, it must have been dope being there, but it's just like I'm not there. I mean, if I were there, it probably would have been a dope ass thing, but. And the graphics did look very good. I mean, obviously you got to give them that, but it's not going to make or break a card. You know what I'm trying to say? Moving on. Number 10, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, at UFC 302. This, like I said, look, and at this point, I said in the beginning, I said, look, I don't think any of these cards are necessarily so bad, except for, I think, the UFC 301 card, and arguably, I won't say UFC 304, because I know I put that at number not second to last or whatever, but I don't know. I thought those cards were mid, but we're getting into, some good card territory. This was a decent card, UFC 302, a good bounce back from UFC 301. It's not Makhachev, Dustin Poirier. A good main event. It was a great fight, too. I see a lot of people putting it as fight of the year. I didn't put that as a nominee, personally, but it was a good fight, don't get me wrong. And it really just shows, I think that Islam Makhachev does have some holes in his game. Like, I do think that there's someone that could take advantage of it, perhaps Arman Tsarukyan next year. Perhaps Charles Oliveira in a rematch, I don't know. Maybe I'm just glazing too hard with Charles Oliveira. But what do you call it? Yeah, no, I think that Dustin Poirier, what's up, Piggly Wiggly? I said that Dustin Poirier, I think he did really good. I think he showed good strength. It even got a finish. Well, Islam got the finish at the end of the fight, and with a Darce choke, choked him out. And it was just a good fight in the main event. And then the co-main event, we're sensing a theme with a lot of these cards. The co-main event, I've been criticizing every single one, basically. Yeah, Strickland Costa, obviously was not a good fight, and it seemed like it was going to be a good fight on paper because, both guys usually go forward. But honestly, it was more of just Strickland controlling the range, jabbing Strickland and getting a decision. So credit to him, I guess, for getting the win. There was also Kevin Holland, Roman Dolidze on the card. That fight took place. I'm trying to think what else was on the card. I'm drawing a blank. I should have maybe I should have. Let me see this. I'm gonna look up these just so I could follow along, so I could look at the full card. But UFC 302. Oh, so yeah, Kevin Holland. Oh, no, it wasn't Roman Dolidze. That was later on in the year. My bad, guys. That was, Kevin Holland versus this guy, Michael Ochoa. Yeah, and Kevin Holland got that, remember, that first round submission and broke that dude's arm. That was a dope moment. And Randy Brown was on the card. Yeah, I do remember this card. I mean, it was all right. It wasn't the greatest, but like I said, you're recovering from UFC 300. Jay Alton Almeida was also in the prelims. Look, I thought that it was a good fight. Like I said, I think the main event really carried it in hindsight, and it was a good main event. It's definitely one that I would rewatch, especially with Islam Makhachev fighting pretty soon. Moving on, UFC 303, Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka, right? So this was after UFC 302. We're kind of going in order now. UFC 303. Now, this was supposed to be headlined by McGregor versus Chandler, right? McGregor seemingly, the rumors are he's pulling out. He didn't show up at the press conference. Who could possibly replace it? We ran down. I mean, there's tons of videos on the channel of us speculating who could possibly replace Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor, seeing that the rest of the card was pretty flat, you know what I mean? And it was like, I don't remember. I think the only other big fight was MVP versus Ian Gary at the time, and that was pretty much it. And I don't even think that was the co-main. And obviously, they also had Jamal Hill, Carlos Ulberg at the time, which obviously that fight totally fell apart. And we'll get into that in a second. But so the main event fell out, and we're like, who could possibly replace the main event? They call Alex Pereira. Pereira accepts it on 2-3 weeks' notice or so. Fights Yuri Prochazka, and it's crazy enough, makes 205 too in that short of time. And comes out of vacation and wins, and just for that, I mean, the storyline behind the card is legendary. Like, this is definitely going to go down, and we're going to be talking about this from at least years to come, and talk about how insane this moment was, especially how clutch it was. Like I said, the UFC, if this didn't happen, I mean, UFC 301, keep in mind, was Pantoja and Usyk, and that was them scraping. So they just came from scraping out a main event, that they have no other options. What do you do? Like, I would love to know behind the scenes. Like, I know they're not doing that UFC documentary that they did, that they released earlier this year for the 2023 year. But I would love to see what other options they had. I mean, I know that they contacted Max Holloway, maybe potentially fighting Michael Chandler instead of McGregor. But I'm curious to see what other options they actually had. But the main event, clutch main event, obviously the co-main event was supposed to be Ortega-Lopez. Ortega pulled out day of. Ige came in literally the day of, weighed in that day, and fought that day on literally like less than a day's notice. Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze was the fight that was originally Jamal Hill, Carlos Ulberg. Then Hill pulled out. It was not Hill and Ulberg. It was actually Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree pulls out because of the whole suspension. Ulberg in. Jamal is out. Anthony Smith, I believe, was in, right? And then what do you call it? Then I think Ulberg pulled out, and then Roman Dolidze moved up 205 on short notice. And Mauro Bueno Silva, that fight was in there too. I think that was the doctor stoppage, right, where she had the cut. MVP Ian Gary was a good fight too. I was excited for that in the build-up. Didn't exactly deliver, but it was all right. It was a good fight. And yeah, decent card, guys. So let's move on. Number 8, UFC 309, which just happened. Jon Jones, Stipe. I love the main event. I loved how the main event panned out. I thought that Jon Jones looked really good. I know a lot of people say, oh, Stipe was washed. I agree. I agree. I think if Stipe was in his prime, I still stand to this day, and I've said this before the fight happened. I said it when the fight was announced in 2023. I said it when Jon Jones fought Cyril Gane. I believe I said this in my video talking about the Gane Jones fight. I said, look, I think prime Stipe beats Jon Jones. And Stipe, I thought, showed up. I thought Stipe wasn't like, he didn't show up and was like crumbling and wobbling. Like I feel like everything that happened to him was because of Jon Jones. I think that Stipe, if he would have went out there against a Cyril Gane, I think he would have done a lot better. I think he would have went or against a Volkov, even arguably a Pavlovich. I think he would have done pretty good. I just don't think he beats Jones or Aspinall. I mean, I don't know I think Pavlovich I might be dragging it on, but still, you guys get what I'm trying to say. I think Volkov, Gane, I think he could potentially do good against those guys, especially with his wrestling. And, so that fight was good, but, the rest of the card was all right. I mean, the Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler fight was decent. It went to a decision. It was all grappling, really. And I found it interesting, but I could definitely see how some people might not find the fight boring. But it's just so I think the Oliveira fight with Chandler is such a fun fight to watch live because the danger of Oliveira. But I feel like I haven't watched it back, so maybe I'm lying and I could watch it back and be totally entertained. But I feel like if you watch it back, it's probably not as entertaining just because you know what happens and that there's no danger. I feel like a lot of that fight was just like fans' heart beating like, yo, is Oliveira gonna submit Chandler? And that's just how it happened, and that went to a decision. So I feel like that the replay value is going to be there, and then the rest of the card was all right. I mean, the Bo Nickel fight I thought was terrible. Did not like that fight at all. So that was UFC 309, and number 8 I feel like is a fair spot. Moving on, UFC 305 gets number 7. Now UFC 305 was one of those cards I was thinking about. Where do I put this? Where do I put this card? I didn't realize. I looked back. I was like, damn, this card was actually really good. It was actually a really good card. Main event, Duplessis, Adesanya. They had that whole rivalry, that whole beef. The fight was pretty decent as well. Pretty close, competitive fight with Duplessis winning in the 4th fight. But Adesanya had moments. People forget Adesanya was doing good. And I'm not exactly like the biggest Adesanya fanboy here. So I'm spinning it on bias. I've had plenty of videos criticizing Adesanya. So I'm here being unbiased. I think Adesanya had a lot of good moments. And I think that if Adesanya beats Nasruddin Imavov, I'm not saying he deserves a title shot, but if he does get a title shot, I don't think it's a done deal that Adesanya loses that one. I probably would pick Duplessis, but just because a lot of time has passed, and I feel like that Adesanya, I feel like the grappling is just such a problem for him. And in terms of if you're going to mix it up well, and I think Duplessis is so unorthodox that he mixes it up so well, that's going to be an issue. And then the co-main event, obviously, we have Steve Ercik. He knocked out. Kai Kara-France knocked out Steve Ercik in the first round after Ercik went 5 rounds with Pantoja in a pretty close fight. That's why I think Kai Kara-France, I should say, not Kai Sakura, Kai Kara-France should get the next title shot. I actually would be interested in that. I was surprised to see Kai Sakura to get the title shot instead of him, but it is what it is. And then also the Dan Hooker Mateusz Gamrot fight was a fun fight where, I did not think Dan Hooker was going to beat Gamrot, but he did. Credit to him. Tai Tuivasa, Jairzinho Rosenstrike was a decent fight. And oh yeah, Carlos Pratas had that amazing knockout of Li Jingliang on that card too. It was one of the best knockouts I thought of the year. And yeah, so good card overall, guys. So moving on. Number 6, Pereira versus Roundtree. Now, obviously, this card was in the Salt Lake City card. I thought this card was fun. It reminded me of the UFC 290 card, 291 card in Salt Lake City, where it was just all badass fun fights from the prelims, moving on and all that. I'm trying to see what fights. I remember that the Buckley Wonderboy fight was on the prelims. I know Aldo Bautista was definitely the biggest stain on the card. Kevin Holland lost after the first round due to a rib injury. Kayla Harrison also got really tested, I think, for the first time in her career, really big, even though she's lost before. This was her biggest test against Ketlin Vieira. And something that makes me say, like, look, I wonder how far she's going to go. Like, will she beat Pena? I do think so. But, look, I don't think that's something you can ignore. Pennington versus Pena, I didn't think it was a terrible fight, to be honest. Like, I didn't think it was a bad fight. I know a lot of people complained about it. I thought it was decently competitive. I think if a fight is competitive, I don't think it's that boring. Like, as long as it's just competitive. Obviously, there's times where, it can be competitive and boring. I mean, look at the Adesanya Yoel Romero fight. That was a competitive, boring fight. But I think if it's competitive, you could pay attention to it and be like, all right, I'm into it. Like, let's see. At least me. I think if you're not a fan of the sport, you probably aren't going to like those kind of matches. But it could be interesting. And I think the co-main event was fun. And obviously, main event I thought was one of the best fights of the year. I mean, Pereira Roundtree. The fact Khalil had some success in that fight, keep in mind. Khalil, he sort of dropped Pereira. I don't know if that was officially a knockdown. I could see it not being a knockdown. It was kind of more, I feel like, of an off balance from a kick, and all that. But look, he definitely gave Pereira some problems, and Pereira obviously just withstood it. Picked him apart at range, waited for later rounds, got him weak, kicked the calf, set up those punches, just did a lot of, land a lot of brutal shots on him. I think Khalil Roundtree said he couldn't even see after the fight or something like that, or after the first punch he couldn't see. So just goes to show how much of a warrior both guys are. So I think this I think any other year would be a lot more up, but that just shows I feel like we had a lot of good pay-per-views. Moving on. UFC 298, this one was early into the year. This one was the one where Volkanovski got knocked out brutally by Topuria. Really was a great fight. Rethinking it, Roundtree was a great matchup for Alex. Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, I remember at the time it felt like, maybe an upset could happen. I mean, it's just that Alex Pereira, I genuinely believe, might be one of the best strikers ever to even be in the UFC. Up there with Anderson, it's either him or Silva, because Silva's the only guy that also was similar in the way that was like, you go out there and it's like you're lucky to even make it out a round or whatever. Like, if you look at Anderson in his early career, the only difference is obviously the level of competition. That's what people are going to say. And that is why I'm saying it truly is 50-50, because Pereira is, the thing about Pereira is we say, oh, like, look, we could say like, oh, that he's ducking a Magomed. And that's probably true, right? Well, not I won't say that he's ducking him, but we could say, like, my point is that he's not proven. Let me say this: he's not ducking Magomed, but what I'm trying to say is we all have that thought. Well, if Magomed gets him, what's going to happen? If Magomed gets him, is this going to be it? And what I'm trying to say is that's all fine, but we're talking about striking. And the fact that he keeps going against these strikers, guys who are proficient in striking, that their main thing is striking, like Yuri, like Jamal. The fact that he goes up against these guys and knocks him out, Adesanya too, he goes out there and knocks him out, that's insane. Like, that's insane that he's going into people's expertise and just outclassing them, knocking them out so early. It is crazy. That's why I think it's not like he's fighting, what I'm trying to say, it's not like he's like a wrestler fighting strikers, because that's a lot less impressive. Obviously, that's just your stronger skill set. It's not like he's fighting even wrestlers that he's defending the takedowns and then knocking them out. He's fighting strikers, good strikers, and knocking them out. But anyway, I got sidetracked from UFC 298. This was a good card. Cejudo Merab was also on the card. This was just a stock card overall. What was the co-main to this? Oh, there was Paulo Costa and Robert Whittaker was the co-main. I feel like I'm forgetting. There's another big fight on this, right? I should have probably had some notes or something in hindsight, but I thought I would be able to free ball this and remember all this because I usually do. It was Jeff Neal, Ian Gary. It wasn't that big of a fight. Yeah, that fight though had a decent build up. And it had stakes for Ian Gary. Obviously Ian Gary has had quite a year. This was the start of it. And I thought Ilya Topuri's knockout of Volkanovski, I think, is getting slept on for one of the best knockouts of the year. Crazy how it happened. Beautiful how he set it up. Really read the signals of Volkanovski. And, yeah, got him up against the fence. It hit him with overhand and flatlined him, let's be honest. So, let's see. I guess the rematch is going to happen, man, but I don't know if they really should do that. Moving on. Number 4, UFC 310, which might seem a little bit high. Because, yeah, Pantoja Asakura, it's like, okay, that's a decent main event, and it's a decent co-main event, but it's just a fact that this card was definitely one of the most stacked cards of the year. If we're talking about from top to bottom stacked, it was UFC 310. Because, I feel like the first prelim of the night was a good fight, and we go all the way to the main card, which, look, I think this whole card was consistently... I don't want to say great, and I think it's better than good. Like, somewhere in between there, I feel like each fight was there, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like the hype, in terms of everything else. I felt like that each fight was in a really good spot. But there wasn't that like massive, oh my god, this big main event, a John Jones or Pereira or something like that. And I think that's what really affected the card and why it might seem a little bit high. But I think that this card was still great. I thought that there were so many fun moments. Even the knockout of Bryce Mitchell where he slam KO'd Kron Gracie, crazy moment. Ian Gary proving himself. Pantoja once again also proving himself. Taking out Asakura when doubters like me said maybe Asakura could win. And I thought it was just a really good card. Even you got Movsar Evloev and Aljamain Sterling on the prelims early in the night. Like I said, so many great cards. So many great fights in the card. We move on. Number 3, we're going to the top 3. UFC 308. This is the Abu Dhabi card. I think that this main and co-main event, I'm trying to think real quick, but I think is the best main and co-main event together of the year, possibly. We had Topuria versus Holloway. That was great. A great build-up with beef with Topuria. I thought really, really did a good job promoting the fight, making me really excited for the fight. And yeah, he was really good at promoting this thing. And we saw Max Holloway also getting fed up himself. He was getting really worked up. And obviously the co-main event too, Hamza. We had so many doubts about Hamza, but he went in and destroyed Whitaker. If you would have told me a week ago before this fight, I think that Hamza is going to go out there, take down Whitaker, and choke him out in the first round. I would have said, you're a casual, you're a Hamza dick rider, and I would have wrote you off. Dirty slam, yeah, I know, right? The Bryce Mitchell one. I assume that's what you're talking about. But I said that if you would have told me that's how the fight was going to happen, that Hamza was going to take down Whitaker and choke him out, I would have thought you were a casual. I thought you were a Hamza dick rider. I would have said, no chance. This is Robert Whitaker. Seriously, that would have been my take. And obviously I was wrong. Obviously that's literally what happened. And it just shows that Hamzat's back on the map for like, wow, like who could he take out? I mean, could he take out Duplessis? I hope he fights Duplessis. Obviously, Duplessis has to get through Strickland, which I don't think is a done deal. I think I've seen some people are acting like it's a done deal. It's not a done deal. I think we could easily see Strickland beat Duplessis. It was a close fight. I thought Strickland won the first fight. Honestly, I scored it for Strickland. It was close. I think people forget because it happened at the beginning of the year. It was a super close fight and a good matchup. And honestly, I might pick Strickland in the rematch. Low key. I might, and but I don't know yet. I could see myself going with Duplessis though, because I think Duplessis has improved a lot this year, and obviously being a champ, you're just going to keep improving. But regardless, look, guys, I think I would love to see that matchup, and obviously there were other fun matchups, the Magomed Ankalaev and Alexander Ratchik matchup. I just thought it was a good card, fun card. Abu Dhabi usually brings a good one. We move on. UFC 299, O'Malley Vera. Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. Now, you guys probably guess what number 1 is, but we'll get into that. But this was a card so stacked that that people were like, is the UFC just purposely making this card more stacked than UFC 300 just so O'Malley could outsell UFC 300? That's how stacked this card was, because we had also Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis, a 5-round co-main. We had a bunch of fights like let me see. I want to get the full list here. I want to get the full list because it is a stag. Yeah, we had Kevin Holland, Michael Venom Page, great fight. Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Matta, Elena, Piotr Jan versus Song Yadong. And then you get to the prelims, too. I mean, you had Curtis Blades, J. Alton Almeida. So many fun fights. Even the Mateusz Gamrot and Rafael Dos Anjos fight. Michel Pereira was on the early prelims. Wow, and Rebellis to Spain, who's not even in the UFC anymore, but he was in the early prelims. Yeah, this card was insanely stacked. Sean O'Malley. I mean, look, was it the best matchup between Vera and O'Malley? No, but you know, it wasn't the best matchup competitively, and we knew that going into it. But still, they had rivalry. It was his first title defense, and it was all hype. My fight of the year, O'Malley versus Vera. It's not a bad fight, honestly. It's not a bad fight. It's just, to me, like, I feel like it's not fight of the year only because it's not, like, competitive. I feel like, look, it's rare, in my opinion, to have a dominant fight and for it to be fight of the year simultaneously. Just because, like, you know, we kind of have the feel already, O'Malley's going to beat Vera. Like, that, we already have that feel. So, like, there's no really risk in it, but there definitely was fun moments, like, of course, the knee that landed, I think, in round 3 and round 5, where, you know, O'Malley nearly got finished with that body shot, and now the clock ran out. But let's talk about number 1, guys, because I know you guys know what it is. UFC 300. I'm sure you guys probably predicted this. Also, I kind of also revealed it before in the past in my best in my MMA award show. This is the best card of the year, hands down. I feel like this might be the best card of all time in the UFC. One of the best stacked cards, up there with like the 205s, up there with the 217s. One of the most stacked cards. I mean, you had obviously the main event with Pereira, Jamal Hill, and even the card delivered. Like, it was one of those things where the card could have not delivered, even with all these great fights, completely delivered. Main event, first round knockout, great fight with Zhang Weili and Zhang Jianao. Justin Gaethje is my KO of the year, and I agree. If this is not your KO of the year, you're trying to be a little different, because this has to be hands down. I'm sorry. Like, how could this not? And I would love if any of you guys have a better KO of the year. I'm all ears. I would love to hear this, because I would absolutely love to hear this, because Justin Gaethje, you know, Max Holloway goes and pretty much dominates Gaethje, just outclasses him on the feet, and takes care of him. The last second, you know, the last few seconds, you know, Max Holloway says, all right, let's throw in the middle. Knocks out Justin Gaethje. You guys know the whole ordeal. Crazy fight. We also had Oliveira Armand on the card. You know, one of my favorite fights on the card, I believe the best fight of the night, which didn't get fight of the night bonus because Gaethje and Holloway did for some reason. I don't think that was the fight of the night. Bobby Green, Jim Miller. I love that fight. I thought that was one of the best fights of the year. Personally, one of my favorite fights. I think up there. That's like a close first or close second with Khalil Roundtree and Pereira, just because that had a little more stakes, obviously. So I think it's hard to compete with that. But the fact, no, I thought that fight was brutal, like a brutal fight where Jim Miller had blood all over. He was, you know, cut up. He was getting battered from Bobby Green, still pushing forward. I believe did well in the first round, too. I got to rewatch that fight because that was a great fight. And prelims, like I said, were amazing. Aljamain was on the prelims again. The poor guy. Has Aljamain been on the prelims for, like, every fight this year? Poor guy. Every card. They're really trying to bury this guy, man. You know, and Aljamain, he's a good dude, man. You know, they shouldn't be doing this to him. After all he has kind of done for the company, especially taking that O'Malley fight on pretty short notice. But that's a side note. I thought UFC 300 was easily the best card of the year, and one of the best cards that we've seen in years. I mean, I'm serious. Like, I think it goes up there with 217, 205. Those cards were really good. But that was my list, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Just want to do a little short stream, guys. You guys, I hope you guys had a good holidays, a good Christmas. New video coming out tomorrow. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, I have a new chair too. I don't know if you guys peeped, but put it together, and we're all chilling now. So thank you guys. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. I really appreciate all the support. Jimbo, appreciate you as always. The GOAT here. Piggly Wiggly as well, always here. I don't know if Luz Salinas is here still, but hey, appreciate you. Good list. I appreciate you. Good list. So many good cards. I feel like there definitely is a few you could switch, and I wouldn't blame anybody. I think a lot of it is preference. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. Peace, Jimbo, the GOAT.